talked about Joan and how much fun that was. Gosh, she was amazing.
Melissa's been on here many.
Then I went on to host well, not House of Style, Fashion Police after they had gotten rid of Joan and Melissa, and I went on to host it. And P.S. Speaking of, I couldn't say nearly as many things as Joan said and gotten away with it. Joan could say things and it was no problem. The censors don't care. I was like, what's Fashion Police? I would say something and get in huge trouble the next day because I'm not Joan Rivers. I'm telling you, it's a gift. Only a few people on the planet that I've known have ever had that.
Did you get in trouble like by the network and all that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And they would cut it out of the show and you're like, oh my gosh. Meanwhile, Joan would say it. It would be hysterical.
She was literally the best. We have a mutual friend in common that she would have been on this podcast multiple times if she were around. Melissa has been on many times. This is what I wanted to ask you before we wrap up as we change the subject. You've done so many things in your career. Now I know you're busy. You have this new show on the GAC network and you're busy and you do give great lifestyle advice and just great life advice. You could be a life coach in your spare time if you ever wanted to kind of.
I do it for my friends. I enjoy it for my friends. Meanwhile, then I think to myself, am I taking that same advice? It's easy to give it.
Honey, you are preaching to the choir. Everything you said, I'm like, I am aligned and all that stuff. But then when it comes to like dating advice, everything, I'm a mess and I give great advice. And I'm like, it's something about me just doesn't want to take my own advice. And I know that, but that's a whole nother.
That's another podcast.
But would you ever do there's a lot of like Housewives fans that listen to this. There's a lot of reality. Like, would you ever do if you were called for like Beverly Hills Housewives, you live in LA and, would you ever do Housewives?
I think that's tricky because once you allow, listen, I said when you're on national television for live for a day, not for a day, for an hour a day, and you're voicing your opinion and sharing your views on things, how many people attack you? On those reality shows, you have to you have to have thick skin, number one, which I've developed through the years. That's fine. It's not going to bother me. But you have to really want that. You got to really want to be on that show because if you look at what's happened to most of those people, every little thing is under the microscope and a lot of times their lives are torn apart. Now, just because you're uber famous and you're super rich and everybody knows your name does not mean you're happy. You are giving every ounce of you, who you are, to the public, and nothing remains sacred anymore. Nothing, So I don't know. That's a tough one. Once you invite those cameras into your home, oh boy, it's on like Donkey Kong, and there's no getting out. And they multiply like gremlins, and you don't know what's happened. So, and I think a lot of the reality stars don't realize that until they're in it, and then once they're in it, it's too late. You can't close that box, Pandora's box. So either you have to be 1,000% in or out. You can't put your toe in.
I would agree with all that. Have you ever been approached? Has anyone ever suggested you?
I have many times. And it's interesting because every time I go, I don't know, maybe I would, maybe. And then I think about it and and I say, okay, yeah, maybe I'll do it. Maybe I'll do it. And then I just think, oh, they're going to forget. They'll forget. They won't call me back. They forget. And then once they keep going, I'm like, So up until now, I'll just leave it at this because I was approached. Up until now, I have been too busy. So I feel like that was the universe telling me, no, it's not time, because I was shooting The Insider and Home and Family simultaneously for 7 years. I was on Home and Family for 10 years. And then, you're just too busy. You can't do a live show and 2 live shows and have it was impossible. I said, well, unless they want to come to Home and Family set, and I don't know how interesting the housewives are going to be at Home and Family. We're like, hey, everybody, can I bake you a cake? The housewives were not that. So up until now, I've been too busy, but it's interesting because it's also come down the road again just recently. So I don't know, but I'm watching what's happening. I'm thinking, how would I serve that show is my question. What am I gonna, I'm not flipping tables. I'm not going to tell anyone their husband is this or that. I'm not going to tell anyone off. I would be boring. I would be the person that doesn't fit because I'd be boring and I'd be nice to them.
Okay, well, put a pin in that for just 1 second. Like, do you know like Rinna, Garcelle?
Oh, and I love them all. I've worked with Rinna. I've worked with Garcelle. They've all been on my shows through the years. Garcelle's best friends with one of my dear friends, Christos. It's like my Greek brother. Teddy had, well, she's not on anymore. She had been on Home and Family a million times with me. Dorit's been on Home and Family. What's the other girl?
Kyle.
Kyle. Like I don't know the new ones, but I know them all, and I really appreciate them all. I don't know how would I fit?
Well, you know them. That's a pretty big. Has anyone specifically out of all these people like suggested you, as you say, they keep coming back? Like, was it Rinna or Garcelle or Kyle or Kathy Hilton? Like, did you know? Like, does someone hand your name in? Is that why they're coming to you, or they know
No,
you?
no, I have no idea. And I always say to my manager, do they watch my shows? Why would they want me? He's like, yes, they keep calling me. I'm like, okay.
Well, in my experience, like you said, what you just said, I agree with everything you say. You have to be 1,000% in, and then you don't think you have anything to offer, and then you get there, and then when you didn't, put the drink down or hold the door for someone or whatever it is,
Yeah.
that will become a big thing. And when Kyle or Rinna or whoever will be coming after you, you were there, so you will speak up, and you will. The next thing you know, you will be 1,000% in. And yes, you should just ignore all the comments, and you will be fighting. As nice as you think you are, and as pleasant as you are with all these day jobs, you will be probably screaming on the top of your lungs.
Probably, because I think they know how to push your buttons. And that's another thing. I mean, listen, we've all been doing this a million years, and we know what producers do, and we know when they want a story, how they can lead you down a path to say what they need you to say. And maybe that's another reason, because I've been doing this for so long. I'm like, I don't know if producer could tell me to try to, to take the story this way. If I'll be like, come on, you guys, come on, that's not cool.
You might be one of the people that goes in and says, you know what, I'm a 1 season wonder. This wasn't for me. It wasn't a good fit. It sounds like you were approached recently for possibly the next season, as they're thinking of casting.
Mhm.
That's a yes.
I was. Mm-hmm.
And you're considering it sounds like.
Well, it was not a, yes, because it's the only time that I would have ever been able to be available to them. So I said, you know what? You should always accept an opportunity. You don't know what it is. This is all very, very beginning and conversations with them and yada, yada, but we'll see where it goes. Never say never. You never know. I mean, I'm the person who says, listen, if someone invites you somewhere and you say, oh, I don't want to go, for instance, the party that I went to